My name is Calvin. I'm going to be the moderator for this session. So, going to start off with a question that we will all answer. Right after that, I'll go into all of you, one question to another, and so on and so forth. And in case while anyone's answering any of the questions and you feel you would like to add a point, kindly alert me and we should be good. All right? All right, so as we said, this is going to be something, to do with a creative economy across the continent, which is expanding, yet monetization, distribution, ownership remain major hurdles across the continent. Now, in 1 minute, what do you believe is the biggest unlock needed to take African creativity from, towards global visibility and profitability? I'll start with Naya.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. For me, the biggest unlock is ownership backed by financing ecosystems. African content creators have global visibility, and as such, our content is really widespread. The issue that we face, though, however, is we don't have enough stake in the value chain.
Yes.
So instead of being content suppliers, we need to be equity holders. So, yeah.
Right, that's a very good answer. Akin, this is something that we were touching on earlier, so definitely right up your yard. How would you answer that?
So, thank you. I believe that we need to create our own systems. Yes, we have a lot of visibility, like Naya said, but we don't own, those structures are not built for us. Africa is unique in its own way. The kind of content that we consume or want to see might not be what the world wants to see or understand, and it's left for us to show it to us first.
Yes.
Build our own systems. We have the population, we have the numbers, we have the technology. Nothing is hidden anymore. Nothing is rocket science. So we just need the willpower and capital to actually just push through this. And it's very achievable, coming soon.
Yeah, I see what you did there, plugging your own self. Dari?
Hello everyone, my name is Dari Aliyu. So for me, I didn't want to start thinking Africa yet. Charity begins at home.
Yes.
I sincerely think if we can get power, electricity, right, first and foremost. I always make a joke that any president that can give us power in this country can rule us forever. If we can get that right at first, then we can start to see more manufacturing hubs. We can now start to talk about building standard operating procedures for those hubs. We can now start to talk about even, doing more exports, talking about IP, helping people to safeguard the IP of their work. But all that is building on an empty foundation.
Yes.
Empty foundation for me, really, before we start to do all that, let's even get electricity right first. We get electricity right, and we can have 20 Dangotes in no time.
All right, that's a very good answer, and of course that stretches across industry. Finally, Omuwumi.
Hi everyone, good evening. Happy to be here. Well done to 234 Finance for putting this together. Just to buttress what Nia, Akin, and Dari have said, ownership is definitely very important. Visibility without ownership is almost like charity, and ownership turns culture into currency. So being able to really understand how to start putting systems and processes in place to be able to monetize, of course, things like digital assets is extremely important. And of course, looking at the infrastructure that we have on ground and looking at it from also an education perspective, being able to sort of maybe create more creative hubs and allowing more creativity into our current curriculum, and educating the people within the creative sector in key and certain areas is so important, because exposure is everything. You can't really build on what you don't know. So learning more about the sector and more about the opportunities within the sector is extremely important.
I like what you've said, and I agree with you. Education is very important. People have gotten exposure. I mean, all of you guys are creatives in your own right, but on the continent, monetization is quite a struggle, right? So we could have power, we have policies and all of those, but any one of you could answer this. How would you go about, to someone, in the audience, one of the young people, how would you go at monetizing for the creatives on the continent? Anyone?
Me? Yeah. Okay. I guess it's really focusing on building the right platforms. So, for example, at my company, Aviola & Co., our aim is sort of to democratize access to digital tools, services, software, and hardware in order to revolutionize, how people are equipped with certain skill sets.
Yes.
So when you are now equipped with those skill sets, what do you do with those skills? So this pen, all right? Before we see this pen, somebody designed it. If it wasn't designed, it can't go to manufacturing for it to be produced. Now, if I want to sell this pen as a physical product, I have to think about the logistics to move the pen. And then after thinking about the logistics, I've received it, I have to think about ways to engage, to sell the pen. So again, I have to look for maybe a graphic designer, a visual artist,
Yes.
A CGI artist, depending on how you want to sell the pen. Then I now have to use, of course, social platforms, above the line advertising, maybe with like flyers and stuff, to actually sell it.
Yes.
So in everything I've said, I've sort of mentioned different creatives, different career paths within the creative industry. And then you now look at it from another perspective, because I'm an interior architect by profession.
Yes.
And then I want to recreate this room, right? And I want to situate this pen within the space.
Yes.
I have to buy the digital representation of this pen. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then that's a whole different audience. It's not just for any everyday man that wants to use the pen. It's now for product designers, graphic designers, interior designers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just really about understanding, the key area within the sector. So if you understand it, you now know the type of platform to create, to be able to sort of maybe digitize the product, or at least have a stake in the process of maybe selling the product or advertising the product as a creative.
All right, that's a good answer. All right, now I'm going to go into the individual questions. Nia, I'll start with you. So, as chairperson of one of Nigeria's most influential media houses, how can African journalism reshape global narratives about Africa to support equitable trade and investment?
Firstly, I think that African journalism needs to move from reactionary storytelling to agenda-setting journalism, right?
Yes.
And I think that the more we shy away from focusing on what the world perceives of us, and we start focusing on our strengths, then things will get a little better for us, right?
Yes.
We need to be able to define and export from our own lens. So, say for instance, at the Sun, we really shine the light on innovation, trade, diplomacy, because Africa really needs to start being looked at as a partner and not a project, right? And so even for us media houses,
Yes.
we need to start associating ourselves with, trade bodies, investors, embassies, so that we align ourselves with Africa's vision for herself, but not only her vision, her economic aspiration as well, because the two go together. We can't have, the talk without the backing, which is funding.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Akin, over to you. Now, many creatives definitely struggle to with the transition from talent to enterprise. You have a lot of people who are talent, but they're not business people, right? What is the most critical business structure or system that creative founders need to build in order to scale sustainability?
So, like Austin Avuro said, it's governance. If you want to build a business, I think I've owned a media group for 15 years now, and to survive the headwinds going through COVID, where you had no income, but you had to keep your staff to keep going work, and you had to keep going. You have to create systems, and be very innovative. Understand when things are shifting and how to shift to.
Yes.
Don't wake up and say you're stuck on one particular path, because things do move around. They come around in circles. You have to be ahead of the trend or just catch it. If you are caught behind, you are going to pay for it dearly as an entrepreneur. I have many scars. So I think it's more about systems and really understanding what you're doing, and have a real thorough understanding of the length and breadth of it. You can't wing it.
Yes.
To be sustainable. Sustainability is 20, 25 years. There's still challenges that we all go through because of our economic situation, but the systems have saved us. Let me put it like that. Yeah. So it's systems. It's in the people, investing in structure, investing in the talent that you have, how you treat your talent, and it goes from all the way bottom all the way to the top.
But with that said, at times structure costs money, and you're trying to set up a business, and you probably have and structure in this sense could even be a payroll system. You get what I mean?
So let me say it like this. For somebody who started the media business with just 2 people, to scaling it to when we were really kicking things,
Yes.
to like 65,
Okay.
and then where we are now, 31. It's still structure. You have to pace yourself. A payroll system can work out on Excel. You don't have to buy a fancy app. We're used to fancy things.
Yes.
We're in Africa, and which is what I was trying to say. You have to contextualize where you are. There will be a point where you need those things, where you need Sage Evolution to do payroll, to do this, to do taxes, to do this. So
Yes.
when investors come and say, "Oh, we want to look at your books," you say, "Oh yeah, we'll give you a login to our Sage."
Yes.
Yeah, that gives you some kind of prominence, but don't forget the textualization you are in. So let me give you an example. When the Naira devalues, and in your budgeting, your Sage costs you $2,000, and the equivalent in Naira is, say, 500,000 Naira.
Yes.
And then dollar goes up to 2,000. It goes up to 1 million. That's still in your present P&L. As a business, what do? You have to make a decision. It's not about following trends now. You have to be practical. I did not budget for that, so I cannot go beyond that. You have to be disciplined also. And so you have to cut back. And there are even some times where you're doing your total review and you're like, why am I even doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things? So I'll give you an example. Last year, I was looking for ways to optimize my workforce, and I did a small survey, and they're like, just taking 2 hours to get to work is really draining. We can wake up and start working. And I said, okay, let me try something. Don't come to work for the entire 2025. Nobody needs to come to the office. If we have productions here, come. They are more productive. We've won business pitches from not seeing anybody. I haven't seen them the whole year. probably when we do our quarterly hangouts, just to say, oh, how's everybody going and how's everybody doing? But apart from that, no. So you have to stay ahead of the curve. You have to understand the business you are in. You're not trying to compete with anybody. You're competing with yourself. And what you're competing is success, because success asks you every day, are you sure you want to be successful? Are you sure? And then, you have many curveballs. You have to learn to work around that. So it's not about money. Not everything is money, to be very honest. You can have a friend that does accounting. Oh, you know what? I'll batch my invoices at the end of every month. Can you just spare like 3 hours to do this?
Yes.
You can pay something, but don't go and think that you are there to hire a whole accountant and then how many invoices are you doing a month? What is the trajectory of your cash flow? Is it something that you can still do on Excel? Why do you want to do this? Is it because somebody said you should do that? We watch a lot of things online and it's all practical, but when you're in the business and you've been to a point where you have zero income and you have 65 people relying on you, you'll make decisions and you understand what you
make
need
it
to
work.
do. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for that. Now, all right, round of applause for him and for everyone else as well. Now, Dari, I want to get into fashion. First and foremost, these threads are looking mighty nice.
Thank you
This
very
is
much.
nice.
Thank you.
I'll see you behind the tent.
Thank
All right, now, as a fashion entrepreneur, how has inconsistent power supply, and I'm glad that we're asking you that because you did touch on that, affected your production and, of course, operations? And what strategies have you had to implement to maintain consistency and quality over the years?
Thank you very much. It's funny that you came back to ask me about power, seeing as I started my conversation about electricity, right?
Yes.
And I'm also a power engineer.
Oh.
So it's almost like you're asking me questions that I already know. So the thing is, not just fashion, in every business right now, we are all being affected by this inconsistent power supply and everything with the grade, band A, band B, and all the bands. What we have done, which is what a lot of other people have done, is now build redundancy into everything we do, which have generator A, generator B, small and big, have solar system, have inverter system. Of course, it affects us, that, missed deadlines. No, it could have affected us. We could have had missed deadlines, could have had broken trust with clients, but TDA is known for speed and delivery. We've actually almost never told any client, sorry, your clothes are not ready. Because like I said, what I did was first and foremost build capacity. I only just started speaking like a year now. For 5 years, I stayed back to build capacity. Yes. And part of the capacity is such that I wasn't focused on the front end. I was focused more on the back end. And back end, part of those things is things like power. So what we started doing is putting in, optimize the way we work. So if you know that power supply is good around this time, maybe put those things, those processes that are very power dependent during that part. Say for instance, you need to cut draft patterns. You need to cut draft patterns that you need power. You put it in that time when there's power. Say you need to do, you need to sew, right? And you start to buy more power efficient machines. Yes. So that they can run on inverters and not necessarily the grid. Then you know what I did? Next thing I did was I went to actually go and there are actually, I'm going to use Lekki as an example. There are actually streets in Lekki where they have more power hours than others. Yeah. So I went, for instance, I looked for a street, Wale Ario. We have power almost 20 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up having 3 buildings on there, and someone would think I don't know what I'm doing. It's because I know that, power is so important to me. And then just ensuring that we map. I'm using the word map, but what I mean is really plan properly around the infrastructure we have. Of course, the outcome now is that there's the cost element. Because we, TDA, we try to keep the cost down. Yes. But it also affect the cost of the end product, which we then have to pass on to the client. Yeah. So we just try to map, we try to work on our processes to be more streamlined. We try to have backup of backup of backup. And then now, I've also gone a little ahead as a power engineer in trying to also help government policies concerning power. You know, I'm speaking to MBET, I'm speaking to, all the power agencies consulting for free
Yes.
so that you and I can have stable power. So that's,
No,
that's what
it's interesting that you mentioned that, right? I'll use an example of a different part of Africa, right? Some fashion houses started just like you have. They have factories locally where they're doing all of that.
Yes.
But as they've scaled to, like, bigger people buying, they've then taken production to China,
Yes.
right? Is that something that you've thought of in terms of, the inconsistent power supply that at times has
So
affected you?
rather than take my production to China, in fact, the name of my company is actually TDA Group Africa.
Yes.
I'm very African-centric, right? Rather than take my production to China, what I'd rather do is build a manufacturing hub here and have my power system.
Yes.
So I run an embedded power system where I generate my own power. You can actually, if you read the power laws in this country, you can actually generate power. Anything you generate above 1 megawatts, there are rules that says you have your own transformer.
Yes.
And you can even supply the communities around you and actually earn money. So I'd rather have my own manufacturing hub. Maybe even invite other fashion designers to be in that hub so that we try to bring the power cost down. So rather than take it outside, because don't forget, the money you think you are saving by taking it to China, you spend it on logistics, bringing those things back into Nigeria. I'd rather put our money into gas plants here,
Yes.
Build the hubs here, build the power plants to support that, and even now generate to the surrounding environment.
Alrighty, thank you very much. Now, Omowumi, I want to get into the African creative industries, right? Now, African creative industries generate immense global visibility, right? And yet revenue capture remains very low. We've spoken about monetization, right? Now, from your perspective, what structural or market level interventions are most critical to ensure that African creators retain economic value from international exposure?
It's quite interesting that you'd ask this question.
Yes.
Because currently we're in partnership with the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment.
Okay.
And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Finance. And we're going to be hosting the very first Nigeria House in Davos, Switzerland,
Well done.
during the World Economic Forum. And the government is pushing certain pillars. And one of the pillars happens to be the creative economy and cultural exports. You know what I mean? So we are taking, these issues to the world stage to start to have these discussions to see how we can actually really solve these problems from all angles. For me, it's very important that we're building, interesting models that don't just allow us sell things one-off, if you get what I mean.
Yes.
We have to start to be creative to see how we can start to infuse things like subscriptions and licensing into the products that we are selling or exporting. Like, I don't know, in today's age, it's like everything you're doing online, everybody's asking you to subscribe. You're using Adobe Photoshop subscription,
SaaS.
Yes, everything is all about subscriptions. So I feel like if we start to think about, certain key areas of our business that we can sort of channel in that direction and build business models around that, and also see how we can start to license stuff. And of course, even like with products, how can we also make certain collaborations that would allow us distribute products on a large scale? So for example, a TDA has, designed an interesting cap, you know, in partnership with like a H&M or like a Gap, or a Zara. How can we also sort of leverage, their distribution channels, but also make it very African? I do think, if I remember correctly, there was an interesting designer, I think it was Orange Culture. I can't remember. They did a partnership one time with H&M, and they were sold out.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I feel like we also need to sort of look at things like partnerships, licensing, subscriptions, and, you know, start to think along, you know, creating in those lines so that we can be a part of, you know, international ecosystems.
I like that you mentioned subscription, and we could probably stick a pin in that, but Akin and I were speaking about subscription, and this is to anyone. Nia, you could even start with it, right? Do you know, I know some of us are, you know, subscribed to Netflix and so many different things that we use for entertainment, or even Spotify, Apple Music, AudioMac, Boomplay, and all of those. But the truth is, when you look at the numbers of people who are subscribing to some of these services as compared to the people not subscribing and pushing the bootleg industry, does subscription really work on the continent? Yeah, we can start with you.
That's a tricky one to answer because if you're looking at the continent and the infrastructure around the continent, then you do ask yourself, how are we generating the numbers we are on those subscription platforms, right? Yes. And like Dari said, electricity is one of the issues on the continent, right? So how are you measuring the number if someone doesn't have electricity in a rural village, in a rural area? How are they subscribing to anything that you're doing? Especially if that thing requires internet, you know what I mean? So I don't know if it's a hype around subscriptions, if it's a hype around that, and if it's like a sort of herd mentality. Just if you hype the numbers here, then you have the following to make sure that it keeps, you know, generating, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Why I'm saying that is just, you know, asking you guys that question.
So in my experience, Nigerians, we don't like to pay for things online. It's in our culture. I don't know why.
Yes.
But I figured it. I figured out of data, out of working for different clients, we just don't like to pay for things online, unless it is useful to them. If you get what I mean.
Yes.
Now, if you go to any other African country, and let me use SADC for instance, South Africa, Namibia, they, as long as they see value, would pay for it. You know, and again, it goes to infrastructure. Over there is an abundance of internet. Right. There is no, electricity is not something they discuss. You know, there wasn't light last week. Those things don't occur in Southern Africa. You know, well, they started to hype up South Africans, but that's political, you know, and that's from a inefficiency point of view. But they can well produce enough electricity to last them whatever time period. So again, it's back to infrastructure, but it's also back to the mentality of the people. And that also comes from economic disposable income.
Yes.
You know, why am I going to pay for this in dollars when me and Derek can share now? And okay, you do it this month. No, but that's what we do. I mean, before Netflix crushed their numbers, first Nigeria looked, oh yes. And then when you look at the numbers, really, you're like, there's a lot of streams, so a lot of people are watching. But they realize that, oh, people are just sharing passwords.
Passwords, yes.
And that's the story of Nigeria. It wasn't an Africa thing. They're still active in Southern Africa. They're still active in Eastern Africa. But Western Africa, they're like, no, these guys, we don't know, you know.
It's a tricky one, definitely. Now, Daria, I want to, you know, subscription in a way
as a service.
As a service. You agree?
That what?
No, subscription as a service works better on the continent.
No, because we don't have the money for it. So I have a different opinion and approach to answering that question. Really, look, check out some of your stuff.
Yeah, you can move.
Please, let me move this thing. It's bending my neck. Check out some of your stuff. There are things they couldn't do. Maybe the year you hired them. A year, two down the line, they started being able to do it.
Yeah.
To be very honest, man, we need economic prosperity. We need shared prosperity. we need 100 of Akin. We need 300 of Omoumi. We need 1,000 of Neya. We need 1 million of TDA. That's really what we need. Why won't...
Why do you have to be the biggest one?
My head is the biggest on this stage. So, really, I'm just trying to say, look, what Zini is doing, which is trying to democratize information, which is trying to pull more people out, which is what we are, why we're actually sitting here, trying to bring more people out. I'm hiring over 130 people that came to me earning 15,000 naira, that are going on with 600,000 naira, and why can't he pay for Netflix now? So as a people, we need to get our money up, and we need to help more people get their money up, and subscription and service will work in Africa.
Nia, you look like you're about to say something. Go right ahead.
Oh no, I agree with him completely. Yes. I really believe in being your, and not to deviate, but to being your brother's keeper. And it's so important that you empower the next person. I think the mentality needs to begin at home. So what you do is what they would do. Oh, somebody saw me earning 15,000. Now I'm earning 600,000. I'm able to do that for the next person, as opposed to being in this constant competition with somebody else that has no business with what you're doing, and just lending a helping hand where you can.
All right. Do you have any remarks on that?
No, I mean, I totally agree with what Daria has said. It's economic wealth,
Right.
keeping it on the continent,
Right.
not thinking about exporting, all this kind of stuff, building proper capacity. And, like he said, at the end of the day, we can go into power generation just because we need to solve our problems and keep people out of it, It's almost like, and that's what Nigeria pushes you to do. You just innovate. Oh,
Innovate.
that's not really a problem. That's why they say, why do you guys think the way you think? Because we're constantly problem solving 24 hours a day,
To
7
survive.
days a week. When something comes up, it doesn't even affect anybody anymore. Okay, just give me an hour. We'll come back to you on what we're going to do. And in an hour, you have to come back to do something because you are going to lose money. So it's fast-paced. I just think we need to build a lot of capacity, like what 234 Finance is doing, trying to show the young people that, look, there are people that have done it. It's not really rocket science, but you need to be focused. You need to, look for information. It's not about dancing on TikTok now. It's about really reading. It's trying to develop yourself. It's about, we were in the generation that when we were studying in the university, we still went to the library. It was at the tail end that they started introducing laptops and Facebook was popping up and all that kind of stuff. Right now, with AI, nobody really has an excuse, to be honest. If I needed to find something on a subject matter in 2004, 2005, I literally needed to go and find a book.
Yes.
And the book might have been written in 1986. But I'll be able to pull out some ideas and now try and liken it to what it is. So there's a lot of analytical thinking that had to go. Now, right now, everything is literally on. If you're trying to look for something, just Google it.
Yes, literally. We're about to conclude. Owumu, could we get your opinion on what all of the other speakers have said?
I mean, everybody has spoken well, and this panel is a very interesting panel because it's like all of us are within kind of the creative, economy sector, media, fashion, PR, extended reality, design. It's looking at it from all perspectives, and I'll take us back to, how I answered the question before. I said subscription, licensing, partnerships, because you see, Africa, Nigeria is a full hybrid approach.
Yes.
You cannot just it's not one track way. You have to be able to, like Aki said, think in the moment, constantly solve problems. So really like coming together and sort of building interesting ecosystems of people that have experience and exposure from different sectors, always coming together to help each other, because the way Dari sees it, the way Akin sees it, and the way Naya sees it is not the way I may see it, and everyone in the audience, everybody's different. But I will say, just like you're going into the library to find a book that has an idea, that's how everybody in this room has an idea and a perspective, thank you, that, will allow you think outside the box, or at least that opinion will bring some value to what is trying to be achieved.
Thank you. Darren? You okay? You? No. Just in conclusion, any final comments?
We just need to keep helping each other. So, structure is actually what makes creativity become profitable.
100%.
So, we can advise people all day. If you don't go out there into the field, start,
Yes.
put a structure around it, never dream of profit. That will be my concluding line, but my hope is that this will be done by everyone that is trying to do something.
Structure. Thank you very much, guys, for all of your answers, your time, and of course, just as everybody has said, we need to do these things together. We need to take up the challenges. We need to be consistent, and that's how we get to achieve equitable trade on the continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.